Hi everybody, welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel and podcast. We're back with another match preview. After the 2-1 victory against Wolves, Newcastle travel down to Nottingham, where we will face Nottingham Forest on Friday night. It's an 8 p.m. kickoff, live on Sky for you lovely people in the UK. I'm Scott, I'm not in the UK, and I'm hosted by Roger, who's also not in the UK, and Joe, who is in the UK. So, international match preview for you this week. But before we get started, as always, I do have to let everybody know that the Gallowgateshots match preview is brought to you by Magpin badges. They are the go-to site for high-quality, unofficial enamel pin badges of Newcastle players, legends, and retro kits. Their website, as always, is magpinbadges.bigcartel.com. So, Nottingham Forest currently sitting 14th in the league with 26 points. That's 6 wins, 8 defeats, and 8 draws and 12 losses. They're on a minus 26 goal difference, Joe. That's the worst in the league, on par with Bournemouth, but that is the worst goal difference in the league. Given the fact that our result at the weekend kind of went in our favour and performances seem to go up as well, what are your confidence levels for this one?
Confidence levels are pretty high, especially given the performance at the weekend with the changes that we made. We've had this obviously quite a big rough patch over the last 2 months or so, really since the turn of the year, and it's starting to feel like we're coming at the end of that, and we're hopefully going to be getting into that run of form that we saw, maybe in October and November time. Isak being a regular into the squad, into the starting 11 is something that we have to take a lot of confidence from. Maxi, with Gordon being out, starting now, he's going to terrorise defences, and even Jacob Murphy, he's come on leaps and bounds. There's a lot of reason to be confident going into this match. From like you say, going against a Forest team who really can't keep a clean sheet. They get a lot of draws, and their home form hasn't been too bad. But without keeping many clean sheets, I think that we have a really good chance to win this one.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about the draws there. They've not won in the last 5, Roger. Defeats to Fulham, West Ham, where they conceded 4, and then Spurs, which I think was a 3-1, or maybe it was a 2-1 win. I think Spurs did them over. But they have drawn against Everton and Man City. They're a bit hot and cold in terms of performances. If you think, getting a draw against Man City, it's not an easy thing to do, as we found out a couple of weeks ago. They do seem to lose one, then draw one at the moment. So does that play in your mind at all that they'll maybe just want to just get a point on the board and shut up shop a bit?
It's a bit of a funny one, Nottingham Forest, because if I go back to my youth, memories of Ian Warne and, down at the City Ground, and I'm not too sure what our record's like down there. I've got a feeling it's not the greatest. So going down there on a Friday night, they've always got a great crowd, always good atmosphere, and I think very much like at Newcastle, if you can get the crowd to get a bit shaky and turn on them a little bit, try and keep things quiet for the first 10, 15 minutes, I think you can make the game a lot easier for yourself. But I think they're going to have a lot of momentum coming into Nottingham's very similar to Newcastle. It'll be absolutely jumping. Everybody will have a right skin full of beer, and they'll pile into the turnstiles. And it's whether that atmosphere in the stands can then translate itself into the pitch. And I think a lot of the Forest players are motivated by that, and they'll see this as a big game. But just coming back to what Joe was saying about obviously coming out of this sticky patch that we've been in, it's really good to see that we're kind of haven't dropped really far away. We're still, we're in 5th still, despite having quite a poor spell, which kind of gives me a little bit of hope and hopefully fills the lads with a lot of confidence. I think the game against Wolves will have given us a lot of confidence. So if we can sort of navigate that first 10, 15 minutes, I'm fairly confident that we'll get a good result. And I think, there's no reason why we can't go there and win for sure.
Yeah, well, last time round, it was a 2-0 win at home. First game of the season, if you can cast your mind back that far. Fabian Schär and Callum Wilson on the score sheet. Quite a dominant performance for what I remember. I don't think Forest even had a shot on target that game. Obviously, though, we do have to address the big elephant in the room that was their first game as a team playing together, considering they signed, I think, 25 players in the summer, and I think they're getting another 5 in it in January. So it seems to have taken Forest a little bit of a while, Joe, to gel as a team, and you would expect that, given how many players they've had to bring in. And you know, they weren't just doing it because they wanted to; they did it because they had to. I think they lost a lot of players in that summer due to contracts ending and so forth. So, you know, it's hard to judge this one because we don't really know what to expect, because you can't just go into this expecting the same team that we played way back in, was it August? It would be August, wasn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, August, yeah. Well, exactly, and I've got to give Forest a lot of credit. A lot of people, myself included, really expected them to be absolute cannon fodder and to be relegated, you know, by March, April time, just based on the fact that, like you say, they had such a high turnaround. Not many squads recover from that kind of change, and it's really hard to nail down that consistency with personnel, with a style. So you've got to give the manager a hell of a lot of credit, and they rewarded him with the contract extension, which was, you know, good to see from a loyalty standpoint. But you're right, they are a bit of a weird unit in that we aren't too sure exactly what to expect. Brennan Johnson, he's come into some really good form recently, which is obviously someone that we need to look out with, you know, especially against set pieces. I think they've been quite decent with set pieces this season. I mean, I'm looking at their record now, their home record, and it's actually pretty impressive. You've got wins against Leicester, Leeds, draws against Man City, you know, and this has been quite consistent across the whole season. It's really been their away record that's let them down. So there's something you just have to be quite wary of. But harking back to what I just said like 5 minutes ago, that result against Wolves and the fact that we put in that performance with the personnel change, I think that we are also a slightly unknown entity as well. We're still learning how to gel with Isak. I mean, Isak and St. Maximin, they haven't played much at all, but you saw just how well they work together down that left-hand side. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more of that. You've got Jacob Murphy coming into the squad, who's whipping some fantastic crosses in. We're finally going to, well, assuming he starts, we're going to start seeing that that change of style down the right-hand side. Then, you know, looking to maybe bring Miggy off the bench again like we did against tired legs. It's a change of style for us, and it's going to be exciting to see that. So, yeah, it's like unknown entities from both sides. But, you know, I think one thing we do have to take confidence in is that our defence is still a mainstay, and for the most part, we've been absolutely solid.
Yeah, we have been, and it's funny you mentioned Brennan Johnson. I think he's injured. I looked at the injury list on
well, there you go.
Premier League injuries, and they have 10 players out, Roger. Brennan Johnson, Chris Wood, Kouyaté, Dean Henderson, Scott McKenna, Willie Bolly. I could go on. The list is quite long. Obviously, you think 10 players is a lot, but like we mentioned earlier, when you've signed 30, it probably isn't really that much of a dent in your squad, because you've got all new players and they're all playing together. But two players who we'll focus on a little bit, ex-Newcastle players this season, are one Joe Shelby, who can play, and a one Chris Wood, who is still classed as a loan, so he can't, but he's injured anyway, so he wouldn't be featuring. But we'll talk about Shelby a little bit, because obviously a great servant of the club, stuck with us in the Championship. Will it be I don't want to say a homecoming, because obviously he's not come back to St James's Park, but do you think the away fans will react well to Joe Shelby? Should he start, or should he play at all on Friday night?
Yeah, I think he'll get a good reception. I think he'll get the traditional, a bit like Les Ferdinand used to get when he used to come up for Tottenham and West Ham and Leicester, when he gets cheered on the pitch, and then literally as soon as he touches the ball, like, boo, boo, you shit house, you know, like. So I think that'll be the case. I think there'll be some ironic cheers, and it's like, you know, for years we kind of maligned him a lot of the time that he played for, and now we'll come into the game and be like, oh, Joe Shelby's a great, you know, like he'll suddenly become this player that we'll have to fear now. But I haven't paid much attention to how he's played for Forest. I saw him on the pitch against Spurs on that 20-minute match of the day episode. But apart from that, I haven't really seen what he's done for them. I haven't really seen whether the Forest fans have liked what he's done, but we all know he is a threat, and if you give him time on the ball, then he can hurt you with those his long range of passing. If you make the game quick in midfield, then he's lost. So that's the idea. I think Willock having such a good game, Bruno just getting back up to kind of speed and having that tempo, and Sean Longstaff being Sean Longstaff. I think if we can try and make that game as quick as possible in midfield, I think you kind of almost negate the fact that John Joe Shelby's on the pitch, because you don't give him the opportunity to have that time and space on the ball. I would have loved to have seen Joe Linton versus John Joe Shelby in a little midfield tussle. That would have been nice to see.
Wow.
That
would have been
yeah. So
yeah, it's funny when he played was it either, I think it was Bournemouth when he was in the cup. It was one of the early cup games, either Palace or Bournemouth, when he came on, and I mean, not to slate Shelby, but you're right that he didn't look with the same pace as the rest of the midfield, and I think that's one of the, obviously I know he was out injured, but that is one of the, I suppose, reasons why Eddie Howe wasn't looking to start him, because he never really had that quick turn of pace. Really ever. He was working on it a lot in the summer, but you're right. If we can get the likes of Bruno and Longstaff and obviously Willock, get them pressing forward down the channels, then I think it's a game that could really pass them by.
Is there a worry, Joe, with John Joe Shelby, that he knows how to maybe press a couple of our players' buttons and maybe get a reaction out of them? I'm thinking Fabian Schär. I'm thinking possibly even Bruno, who we talked about on the No Smelling Faces podcast. He's been putting in some pretty lively challenges recently.
He's been a little Raji recently, hasn't he?
He has been a little Raji. Could John Joe, just have a word in the ear of some of his teammates and be like, if you do this to Schär, if you just get him a head injury early on, like he always loves, and then you might put a dodgy tackle in or something. Do you think that maybe some mind games being played there?
Well, that's the risk of going against a player that only left you a month ago, is that tactics, knowledge about different players, it's all going to be fresh in the mind, and no doubt he's going to have a word with some of the Forest players about who to target, what to say, what to do, and not only the mind games but the tactical side of things as well. I mean, obviously, Forest's manager will be able to do that himself, but it's not going to cause him any harm to say to Shelby, so tell me, is there any kind of insider knowledge that I should know about? It's one of those you can't really help. You've just got to tell Bruno to calm himself down and stop putting in these annoying Raji tackles, because don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely loving the passion, I'm loving the ferocity, and you need that physicality in midfield, but at the same time I'm sick of him getting giving stupid fouls away that we know can be prime Shelby territory, and that's the last thing you want to do.
Absolutely. We'll turn our focus to Newcastle, Roger. I'll talk about their injuries first. There's only really one to add to Emil Kraft, who we all know is out for the rest of the season. That's Anthony Gordon, which I think came as a bit of a shock to everybody, because I think in Eddie Howe's press conference he said there was no new injury worries, and then when it got to the match on Sunday, Gordon was deemed injured, and he's out for a couple of weeks with an ankle injury, and well, I just hope that's not an Eddie Howe couple of weeks, because that'll mean he's out until next season. We've also got Joe Linton out suspended, and Ryan Fraser is ousted of sorts, shall we say. He's ousted to the under-21s. I don't see him featuring again. So, I mean, given the people that are out, for you, is it same as and just go with the same starting 11 as last week?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we started the game really well against Wolves, and Murphy, for the amount of times that he's failed to grasp his chance, when he's had when Bruce brought him in, might have brought him in, and earlier on in Eddie Howe's tenure, he's brought him in as well, and he's not really done it. He's sort of given more justification to the fact that he might just be a super sub, for want of a better word, minus the super. But actually, I was like, at the start of the season, I was quite rooting for him. I thought he might be a bit of a surprise package. It's taken a long time for him to kind of get closer, but I think I heard on the commentary that he's been involved in every game this season. Now, I don't know whether that's just Premier League or whether that's in the cup games, but Eddie Howe obviously sees something in him, and I think there is, with pace like that, like there's always something there. Do you know what I mean? Like, because that's, you can't really train a player to be that much quicker than they're able to be.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, he's got a natural pace on the ball, and if he can just polish off those, his finishing, obviously, his decision making, like those are things that you can polish. Whereas the raw pace is just raw pace. So it's really good to see him getting a chance, and really good to see him taking a chance. And obviously, it's nice because he is a fan as well. He's a fan of Newcastle as well, which is always like nice to see. And I think Miggy needed a little rest, and I think the way that we have a good, the good squad cohesion, I think players will be rooting for him, trying to, put him in good positions.
Yeah,
and he does the dirty work going backwards, which is what you get from Miggy as well. So it's good that we have a player who is not quite like for like with Miggy, slightly different skill set, but they both work hard because he's played that fullback role under previous managers, so he knows what it's like. So I'll be rooting for him. I'm really pleased that he's finally getting a little run, and he's hopefully going to continue to take his chance. So I'm all for Jacob Murphy.
Yeah. I mean, you've mentioned Miggy Almer on there, and obviously he came on as a super sub, as Jacob Murphy has filled in for this earlier on the season. Is there an argument, Joe, that because Miggy came on and scored, he gets straight back in ahead of Jacob Murphy? And if that does happen, is that seen as a bit harsh on Jacob Murphy given his performance at the weekend?
Well, you've got to really think about why Miggy was dropped in the first place, and the reason why was because teams figured out how to defend against his attack and his link-up play with Trippier for the most part. So I don't see how him scoring has changed that. If anything, it's maybe just reaffirmed the idea that putting him on against tired legs and cutting inside, it becomes more effective later on in the game. I can only speak highly of Murphy's performance at the weekend. As Roger said, his pressing, his work rate was fantastic. I believe he won the free kick that Trippier scored from. I think it was. And he's not shy of putting a foot in and to really press. And like I said before, some of the crosses he's putting in recently have been fantastic. I think his technical ability as well. Murphy's technical ability has really come leaps and bounds as well. He seems a lot more confident on the ball, a lot more aware, less of a headless chicken, of one of a better phrase. It is similar. I suppose you could say the same thing of Miggy's trajectory as well. He's seems to be just like that more confident player. So I think starting him again on Friday is probably the right decision. I think that's what Howe's going to do. He's probably going to look at the squad and think it worked fantastically, especially the first half. Let's just do that again and make sure that we don't drop in that second half. When we come back out, make sure we keep that intensity up. And so I think that front three will probably stay the same, at least for the short term.
Yeah, I mean, provided there's been no injuries that we don't know of, and didn't seem to be any.
Who knows with Eddie Howe?
But who knows with Eddie Howe in his press conference? So the whole team could be out for all we know. I think one thing with Jacob Murphy, he relies on his confidence, and he's a very confidence-based player. And if his confidence is high, he's playing well. So I think him starting last week, putting in a performance in, if you were to drop him, that could do more damage than good in terms of his then future ability and confidence. But we'll see what happens on that one. I want to talk a little bit about Alexander Isak. Obviously, Roger, I think you've nicknamed him Old Spaghetti Legs. So we'll run with
proper
that.
Spaghetti legs.
Does he keep his spot as well for you? Is it a given now that he's
100%? I think
number one choice with Wilson.
I think until such time whereas Wilson can kind of rediscover that, I don't know, the fire in his belly a little bit. I mean, if you just compare the two players, it's a no-brainer. Isak starts and plays every time, but certain games require certain things, and if you not that there is like in the old-fashioned sense of like a physical couple of centre halves, then you would go with a Wilson. Although Isak's he's not a softie or out like that, but he's just a little bit more wiry in it. I think Wilson is a bit more canny than Isak is at present. So, but I think, yeah, I mean, Isak's just, I think I put it on the group the other day, like, at times he just looks unplayable. Like, when he first came in, and it's so upsetting for him that he's just been so stop-start since the start of the season, because his movement is just ridiculous at times. And it's almost like,
Yeah,
I think when Beardsley came back to Newcastle, his movement was far superior to the players. They couldn't see the passes that he was making run for.
Yeah.
And I think Isak will develop an amazing relationship with Bruno, because Bruno is really good at reading little runs that people make, thus the partnership with Miggy. So I think getting a partnership, not just with Alan Saint-Maximin, which he seems to have just struck up instinctively. I think when Bruno is able, when we have a proper number 6, when Bruno is able to push forward and like put Isak into really good positions because he knows where he's going to run, a bit like Cabaye could do with Cissé and Demba Ba, those types of things. Like, I think he's just going to be like, next season, if he has a good pre-season, I think Isak could be like an absolute revelation. Like, he's just absolutely ridiculous. He's a really, really good footballer. So I think, to summarise, Isak starts, Bosch.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was interesting, Eddie Howe's comments after the game about reclarifying what his fitness levels were and what he meant in his presser when he said he's not ready for a full 90 minutes, and he reiterated that what he meant was he's not ready for an Eddie Howe 90 minutes in terms of
I
the
love that,
intensity
by the
that
way.
he wants him to play. And I love that as well.
I really love that.
And you could actually see at around the 60, 70 minute mark when Isak came off, he was absolutely knackered. So hopefully another week in training, and we should get those sharpness and fitness levels up a little bit more. One thing I want to mention on training, I think it was Keith Downey put a video up, or maybe it was Sky Sports News had a video up this morning with the Newcastle players training outside, and it was all the players who didn't start, and Callum Wilson wasn't there yet again. So there's something going on there, because I think he missed a lot of training last week. It came out as well. He's obviously not fully fit. We can see that in his performances. So is it a case, Joe, for Callum Wilson that Eddie Howe just is like, look, take a week away. We don't, need to rely on you at all. Get yourself and your immune system back up, because it seems to be he's had some form of illness and he hasn't been able to shake it off. Get that up and running. So stay in the house, lock yourself away, and we'll need you if we need you. But obviously that does leave us short a striker should anything happen to Isak at the weekend.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a strange predicament we're in, having only 2 recognised strikers at this point in the season. And I know that Eddie Howe absolutely despises having any one position short. He was obviously very reluctant to get rid of Chris Wood in January, as well as Shelby. And I think if it was up to him, none of those players would have went. So it's a strange one. But listen, man, every Newcastle fan can see that Wilson has been off the pace for a while, and it's just better to see when you compare the performances of him versus Isak. Even when Isak was literally on his last legs in that sort of 60-odd minute, he was chasing defenders down with pace as well, with determination. Whereas when Wilson came on, I think it took him like 10 minutes just to get his first touch. And I see most of the sort of complimentary things that have been said towards Wilson recently has been how he roughs defenders up, how he's got that sort of streetwise knowledge about him, that he's able to sort of, be that kind of player. But to me, we need the kind of players that are going to be direct going into the box, are going to be ready on the end of crosses like Isak was. We don't need that sort of player right now who's going to be that almost target man-esque. We that's sitting so high up the pitch. So yeah, with Wilson, it's a bit unfortunate because I know how good a player he can be. I think he himself has said on his podcast that he's disappointed in his own performances. And what I really want to see him come to his best again, and I think that will happen. I think it's going to take a while. It might take 2 months or something, 3 months maybe, to see that level of player again. But the good thing is, at least the silver lining with this, is that we now get to see Isak starting regularly, getting more minutes in, getting that link-up play with the different players. So, yeah, I hope that Wilson does find his form again. But right now, it's just not happening for him.
It's not. No. Well, we'll turn our attentions to our predictions for this game on Friday night. Roger, you seem to be looking quite confident there, so I'll come to you first. What's your score predictions for this one, mate?
I'm going to go clean sheet. Nick Pope's going to have a blinder after he's got that out of his system. I'm going to go 2-0.
2-0. Nice.
Lovely.
Joe?
Well, I think we are going to keep a clean sheet. And looking at Forest's record, it's something they just basically can't do. But I think it's a hard one because my main criticism of, especially at the weekend, was we were creating some fantastic chances, but we just were not clinical enough. And what I want to see is us burying more chances early on. We cannot leave games like we did at 1-0 for so long because all it takes is one little mistake that we saw with Trippier to punish us and to go 1-1 and then we have to rely on subs to win us the game. I want us to see us be more clinical and to really finish off those chances that we work so hard to create. I still think that it's going to take a little bit of time for that to gel with the front three going on, but I think I am expecting a bit of a dominant performance and I think we'll come out 1-0 winners. It all depends on whether we can put those chances away. But I'm fully expecting us to get that win. I think it might be. I think Forest might be quite quite scrappy and quite determined.
Yeah, and that was probably going to be my prediction as well. 1-0. I think Forest will not make it easy for us in any stretch of imagination. And although it may be a dominant performance possession wise, I think it'll be very light on chances and clear cut chances and that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm also going to go for a 1-0. We'll see. I'm not going to put a score prediction on it because I think the last time I did that, the player got injured. So that's not going to happen this week. Yeah, is there anything else that anyone wants to add before we wrap this one up?
No, it's very nice to see you, and stay tuned for extra times coming back later on this week. Yeah, woo!
Absolutely. Yeah, at the time of recording this, you'll have extra time tomorrow night because this will go out on Wednesday. So that's Thursday for anyone who's watching it at another time. That'll be out live. We've also obviously got the Over Smiling Faces podcast that went live on Monday. We should be doing a reaction to this Forest game because it is an away one, so there'll be some of us sitting at home watching it, so we'll be able to do a reaction. You've also got Canny Chatter that Joe, myself, Ian and Harry did. That's an audio-only one, so if you're looking for that one, it's on the podcast channels. And there's also a couple of short videos, about 10 minutes long, that Chris and Mark did earlier this week that one went live today. I think another one goes live tomorrow. We're talking about safe standing and sponsorship deals. So tons of content coming your way. And all we ask you to do, if you love this content, is just scroll down from these videos, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and hit the notification bell. Or if you listen to us on podcast, give us a 5-star rating. That helps as well. But if you want to go one step further, we do have a membership program. It's $2.99 a month. That gets you early access to all the pre-recorded videos, as well as the Telegram group. And yeah, it's a nice little community, that Telegram group. Good place to be.
On fire at the minute.
It is on fire. Well. It's doing very, very well. Awesome. Well, lads, we will wrap this one up. I've enjoyed this. Roger, very good to see you, mate. I hope Canada's not too cold at the moment.
It's slowly defrosting, we'll say.
Slowly defrosting. Well, I think England's getting the snow from Canada at the moment, and I think I'll probably get it tomorrow.
You've not seen snow, man. That's nout. It's nout. Honestly, it's crazy. Like, I was shoveling, it was about 7 or 8 inches thick, and I was like, what is going on? I'm like, come on, get out. But it's every day's a new adventure, we'll say.
Awesome. Good to hear. Good to see you as well. Joe, always a pleasure, mate. We'll see everybody in the next one. Thanks for watching. And how are the lads? Let's get another win before this international.
How are the lads?
Right. Come on.
Thanks, everyone.